For many years, there were rumors that SpaceX would go public, and for that many years, I kept thinking there's no way they would actually go public. And then we found out news from this last week. But why did I think they would never go public? As Mars is on the doorstep for Starship and the moon for Artemis 3 on the horizon in 2027 and 2028, SpaceX appears to finally be going public, and in this episode, we'll be asking these questions. What exactly is Elon Musk thinking? What does going IPO for SpaceX mean? Does this mean that SpaceX's mission to Mars is over? And is there an upside to all of this? We're going to give our answer to all of those questions, and I'll share my thoughts on this major piece of space news. Just another day in the Space Conundrum, but it definitely wasn't on my 2025 or 2026 space bingo card, so there's that. But by the end of the video, we want to hear from you. What do you think? Are you excited, scared, or a little bit of both? Let us know. Welcome to another episode of Today in Space. Let's dive in. Amid more rumors earlier this month that SpaceX was thinking about an IPO, the brilliant space reporter Eric Berger dove in, did a little bit of research, and wrote an article on why he thought this rumor might actually be true. And then to top that off, Elon Musk himself replied and tweeted to Eric's post, as usual, Eric is accurate. But why? Why would SpaceX go public? But before we answer that, let's discuss more in detail why SpaceX resisted the allure of being a public company on the US stock exchange for so long. Number one on that list of reasons not to go public is dealing with stockholder demands that are not aligned with SpaceX's mission. Mr. Musk has for many years dealt with the disconnect at Tesla and spoke often and openly about the stress and strain that caused to him and the business. So SpaceX and its mission were always too important to let the company go public because he, in quote, feared that shareholder desires for financial return were not consistent with his ultimate goal of settling Mars. There's also the aspect that if you are a public company that is traded on the market, then the actual value of the company is whatever the market decides. Regardless of the valuation of the assets and revenue coming in, the market decides the price. And we saw for many years here that a SpaceX incident like a rocket blowing up on the pad or an issue at launch would get publicity and scrutiny and actually affect the price of Tesla stock in a negative way for multiple days or weeks. Again, Tesla is not SpaceX. So we already saw the effect of spaceflight issues affecting other companies of Elon Musk. And in the last decade, especially here on the podcast, we've noted that we've seen a lot of public space companies struggle with their stock price. It's been very volatile. For full transparency, I'm personally invested in Virgin Galactic, Planet Labs, Intuitive Machines, and at one time, I had Astra stock, which no longer is listed and lost 99% of its value. Of all of these, 2 have been in the green. But my biggest concern for SpaceX going public is actually not around profit or business success, but around human spaceflight. I look back at space history for this opinion here, and if we look at the entire history of the space shuttle for NASA, about 40 years of service, aside from 2 incidents, it was essentially a flawless and incredible program for human spaceflight, albeit within Earth's orbit, and ended up costing more than they originally expected. But one could argue that both the Challenger and Columbia incidents were in some way caused by the pressure that NASA was experiencing from the press and internally about the delay with the space shuttles, with reusability, getting them back onto the pad, and the amount of time between launches. The pressure that they experienced, I believe, led to the poor decision-making from leadership, even when plenty of engineers and folks on the inside were sharing their concern about the disaster about to happen and the risks that were being taken. Having personally experienced the pressure as an employee of a once public company, I can tell you that this will affect the workforce of SpaceX, although I'm not going to sit here and say that I know how. And granted, what I did for work compared to what NASA and SpaceX employees do is not the same when you consider what's at stake at the end of the day. But to say that stockholders and investors will not have an influence or add pressure to SpaceX launches is foolish. I just don't think that public company pressure is something that the SpaceX workforce needs to add on to an already complex and demanding work life and just their lives in general, which so many of them have dedicated to making sure that SpaceX can be the Goliath, the colossus of a space company that it is today. For NASA, its pressure was politics and appearance, not necessarily profit-based, but definitely the expense of the program played a role in that long term. For SpaceX, the pressure is going to be political and profit, unfortunately. And with the way the world has turned in this version of the Space Conundrum, the chase for profit is at an all-time high, like a Ferengi-level obsession with profit. So I'm very wary in the balance of the force that this IPO could cause with space progress, especially with SpaceX. But we are a science podcast, so for my own sanity and for the sake of science, let's look at some of the facts. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Alex, just interrupting the podcast real quick, just to give you a reminder. Please make sure to subscribe to the podcast, whether you're listening on audio, watching in video, wherever you like. Please make sure you're subscribing and make sure to share it with a friend that actually is in love with space, right? Or maybe they're space curious. We love space curious people here. So would really appreciate the help doing that. It helps get the episodes and the podcast out to those people, and we can fight the algorithm and make sure that the people that really like space or are interested in it can see the podcast. So please make sure to do that. Thank you so much. Let's dive back in. Tesla, which is Elon's public technology company, is the exception to the rule of going public. Having owned Tesla stock for many years, I can say that it has returned well. I didn't have much, but it's doing well. So it's not like he has not been successful in the public company arena. Regardless of how you feel about the company or the owner, Tesla is a successful public company. I've also had the opportunity to work at a startup that then eventually went public, got a huge influx of cash, just like SpaceX wants to do, but eventually ended up going bankrupt and sold to another company for pennies on the dollar. And that's not just my story as an employee. It seems to be one of the most common stories of companies that choose to go public, at least in the fact that they don't stay public for very long. We hear so often that going IPO is this amazing event that can happen in a business's life and something not many have experienced as employees, but we rarely share the reality of all the companies that don't make it and get delisted. And there's a lot of them. To keep things fair, we decided to ask Grok about the percentage of companies in the US stock exchange that eventually get delisted. So basically, how successful are these companies that end up going public on the US stock exchange? So the companies that are delisted could be for a bunch of different reasons, whether they were acquired by another company, they went bankrupt, or they went private and weren't acquired by anybody. There were 3 time ranges for the companies that were publicly listed on the stock exchange: a life cycle of 3, 5, and 10 years. After 3 years, 29% were delisted, acquired, or went bankrupt. After 5 years, 46 were delisted, acquired, or went bankrupt. And after 10 years on the stock market, 71% of those companies were delisted, acquired, or went bankrupt. And this is a group of companies from the 1980s through the 2020s to today. So for me, I'm definitely concerned and maybe a little triggered by the fact that Mr. Musk wants to go public after I have personally seen it not go well. Is it possible that after the big funding raise and public stock run that Mr. Musk acquires SpaceX back and then goes private again? Yes, it definitely seems within the possibility, but according to his own AI, there is a 23 to 55% chance that they get acquired or merge with another company in 3 to 10 years, and a 6 to 16% chance that they go bankrupt in 3 to 10 years. But Elon Musk has been successful with Tesla, and according to a Harvard Business School study, which we will have the link to in this episode, repeat founders with prior success have about a 30% chance of another success. Now, the report does say that a success just means going public, but it's still a data point, and Mr. Musk seems to be the outlier here in examples of multiple successful companies on the stock exchange. And another thing to SpaceX's advantage is they're not a new company, and they've become the powerhouse of repeatable rocket launches, sending over 90% of all the payload mass sent from Earth into orbit themselves. If you look at all the countries that are launching things into space, SpaceX is outpacing the entire US market and China. And if China didn't have SpaceX in its way, they would have a strong lead in space travel over the US. So SpaceX actually has a great, strong case to be made to investors now that they should know what to expect. And unlike a very new company that's going public or a startup company that still hasn't reached kind of its potential, there's really not a lot of promises with SpaceX for investors to be uneducated on, because they've been leading the space market for a long time here, especially in the lifetime of public companies. So SpaceX is really already tested and is showing you what they're capable of doing. It's just, do you want them to do more now? And then on top of it, SpaceX has an already booming revenue stream with Starlink, which I use here at Today in Space HQ to stream and go live, and it's a great product. So it's possible that the revenue stream of Starlink will appease the general stockholder and investor search for constant and consistent growth quarter to quarter for more profit. I just don't think that there's a limit to humanity's search for more profit, so I don't know if it'll ever be enough, at least not in this age anyway. But if people investing in SpaceX truly understand SpaceX, then they will be able to keep everyone happy if they're able to keep up their progress. What's going on, everybody? Alex coming in for one last interruption, just to remind you that this podcast is brought to you by AG3D Labs. It's our idea workshop where we have a fleet of 3D printers that we help people bring ideas into reality, like literally physical 3D printed parts, and not just props or funny trinkets, functional parts, especially carbon fiber. So if you're interested in anything like that, please reach out to us at ag3d-printing.com. If you're a small business and you're looking to create a part so that you can go around, showcase it, say, here's my idea, here's a prototype, like, would you guys be interested in this? Maybe you can sell a few and make some extra cash. Maybe you can bring it to a meeting where you might get some funding. 3D printing enables so much, and that's what we love to do here at AG3D. So you can find the link in any of our social media. That's stan.store/AG3D-labs. We have a ton of digital services stuff that you can sign up. You can book some of our time so we can talk face-to-face. I can help you with 3D print challenges that you're having. Very simple, email back and forth, send some images, videos. I'll give you your next best step. And of course, if you're trying to find your first 3D printer, we can help with that too. So a bunch of different options, a bunch of different ways that we can help, from you're a very beginner to you've got 3D printers and you're running a business, and everything in between. So make sure to check that out. And then, of course, sign up for our newsletter at ag3d-printing.com. Check out the blog. We're going to have more projects coming out, but just want to let you know that we got a lot going on. I know we're editing my first book on 3D printing, which is wild, and we're building an AI as well for 3D printing. So there's a lot going on. stan.store/AG3D-labs. The best way to keep in touch with us. So make sure to check that out. Let's get back to the show. Thank you. But let's discuss the real reason why Mr. Musk would choose to relinquish SpaceX's greatest strength, its independence. The reality is that the AI race is now, and Tesla and xAI are at the center, competing against companies like Gemini with Google, ChatGPT with OpenAI, Meta AI with Meta, Amazon with Anthropic, and Microsoft with Copilot, among many others. The race for the best AI has pushed public investment so far that in order to beat the competition, physics needs to be involved here. And so the amount of heat generated and power needed to maintain compute power forces the reality that AI supercomputers cannot stay here on Earth. They generate too much heat, use methods of energy that are pumping gases like methane and CO2 into the air, and demanding too much power. If any of these companies accomplish the full goal of compute power for these AIs, it will have sapped many resources from Earth, including raising the expense of those resources for everyone. And more importantly, for the people in the surrounding areas that these super AI computers are running terrestrially, they are experiencing the most hardship in the progress for AI supremacy. So, the next logical place for AI supercomputers and servers is in space. It's the perfect place to put a large supercomputer data center that can be thermally regulated and even perform at higher efficiency in the cold vacuum of space. It would be mostly, if not entirely, powered by solar energy from our sun, which, is the giant fusion reactor at the center of our solar system. And it would orbit Earth like some technosphere of intelligence. Really makes you wonder if there are other technospheres orbiting other planets of highly advanced alien civilizations. But maybe that's a topic for another episode, so comment below if you want to let us know that you want us to dig more into that, because I like it. But for any of these companies to be able to launch an AI technosphere supercomputer server, it's going to require a large amount of money. The competition is buying up space companies, while Mr. Musk and Mr. Bezos both have the space companies and satellite businesses to do all of it. And unless some magic dream team of companies and conglomerates is created and they're able to do the impossible in record time, SpaceX is probably going to be the first to do it. So if SpaceX goes public and gets their estimated evaluation of $1.5 trillion, then they could raise up to or above $30 billion in cash. They'd break the record for the highest IPO in history and raise an ungodly amount of money, enough to help fund the AI data centers in orbit. And with their Starlink revenue increasing and growing over time, then they would eventually be able to fund the missions to Mars. And right now, it seems like the Starlink revenue alone may not fund a large expedition to Mars with Starship, at least without SpaceX proving that they can do it within that short campaign. It would just be enough to send a few series of missions over the decade, which also seems to be the length of time most public companies seem to survive on the stock market, which is definitely interesting. But today, right now, we're here in the middle of the second space race, and the Space Conundrum cycle turns once again with a new chaotic event unfolding itself with SpaceX officially going public. And now for the most important part. What do you think about all this? You gotta let us know. I've shared my thoughts and concerns on a SpaceX IPO, even with the added benefits of getting all this AI-powered heat generation, emissions, and fuel use into space and off the planet. Environmentally friendly AI progress sounds very good to me, as well as reduced regional cost and energy drain and pollution that these terrestrial AI data centers are creating. But is it worth risking the mission of going to Mars, which was the original goal of SpaceX, in the event that the IPO goes sour? Will the AI bubble actually pop and leave a gigantic hole in the pocket of the largest space company in the world? Or will things work out well, and then we have a Starship Mars mission and a moon mission before the end of the decade anyways, with plenty of funding to truly make human life interplanetary within the decade? It's all a guessing game at this point, and the Space Conundrum never makes it easy. But we want to know what you think, so hit us up in the comments below, DM us on social media. You can find all of our links at stan.store/AG3D Labs. That's the link in all of our social media accounts, in case you're looking to follow us anywhere else. You can email us at todayinspacepodcast@gmail.com anytime. We'd love to hear from you and to continue this exciting but slightly terrifying moment in space history, where Space Race 2.0 meets AI Race 1.0, and the streams are definitely crossing. So raise the shields and be on yellow alert. We can't wait to hear from you. Until next time, spread love, spread science, and stay curious. Hope you have a wonderful holiday season and be good to yourself. It's going to be a wild ride, and 2026 shows no signs of slowing down, but we'll be here following along. We'll see you on the next episode.